You see, kids come here from all over the United States, indeed the world. Jones is the only pediatrician giving long-term antibiotic treatment to kids with Lyme, and that's brought him a world of trouble. How do you account for this resistance to your methods?
That's a very difficult one. I mean, some of it has to do with pride. They live in an academia and they have their clinics and they see maybe 3 or 4 patients with Lyme a week. They don't have the experience where I see 14,000 children with Lyme disease over a period of years.
The objection to using long-term antibiotics is due in part to concern about the rise of drug-resistant bacteria. But the official policy that they're of no use in treating persistent Lyme is based largely on a single study out of BU Medical School. It stated that antibiotics were no more effective than placebos.
And that's based on one trial that used 2 different antibiotics that don't work very well. And would you stop a cancer treatment trial or a series of treatment trials if one didn't work?
Jones is 79 and works a minimum of 6 days a week. As seen in the provocative new film about chronic Lyme, Under Our Skin, he's also had to make time for multiple appearances before the Connecticut Medical Board to defend his unorthodox treatments. Jones is at pains to point out that all the children involved in these cases are doing well. Why haven't you caved in and just hung up your shingle and retired?
If I had retired and resigned, I think it's 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, when they came with me with the statement of charges, if I had done that then, there had been 3,000 children who had been denied treatment, and they wouldn't have gotten it elsewhere, because a lot of people they just don't treat kids.
In the woods that you're standing in now, 10 years ago, there were no deer ticks.
Sam Telford, a microbiologist specializing in deer ticks, no longer has to travel to coastal areas to do his field work. That's because it has come to him, and the rest of us as well.
We look at the 128-495 corridor as being the next Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard within the next 5 to 10 years. They will have as many cases per capita as Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, simply because historically they haven't been as proactive in terms of dealing with their deer herds.
The number of confirmed cases of Lyme disease in Massachusetts has been steadily increasing. In spots, it's a full-out epidemic.
My neighbor has probably been infected at least 8 times.
No kidding.
Now, and his cousin is sick with it, too.
Susan Mercurio Street in Hamilton is crowded with the stories behind the statistics.
The yellow house down here, the woman had it. Across the street from her, the daughter was very sick with it.
And the numbers don't begin to count those who have trouble getting diagnosed or suffer from co-infections. Ticks can carry a number of illnesses. But general practitioners can't be expected to know everything, says Pamela Weintraub, author of Cure Unknown, Inside the Lyme Epidemic.
Doctors who work in communities follow the guidelines because they're not experts, they're not researchers, they are tied to HMOs, which of course also subscribe to this very cookie-cutter form of medicine.
And resistance to the notion of chronic Lyme can coexist with compassion.
This is not just a group of wackos that is looking for attention.
Jonathan Edlow is author of Bullseye, Unraveling the Medical Mystery of Lyme Disease.
And I've interviewed a lot of people for the book, and I must say that many of those individuals, or at least some of those individuals, struck me as very reasonable people and very psychologically intact, who had well-described Lyme disease and then was never the same after that.
Still, without hard evidence of living Lyme bacteria in such patients, Edlow is reluctant to acknowledge that the infection persists in some undetectable state.
As a scientist, most of the evidence favors the mainstream view on this.
That, of course, can be hard to hear for the many who do not respond to the standard 30-day treatment.
Mainstream science shows that about 20% of the people who are diagnosed later than a year fail the treatment and just stay sick. And that's an epidemic that's created by those very narrow and restrictive guidelines. And they can spend years wandering the wilderness of contested disease.